You're able to hear me?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Let's talk.
Okay, even me, I can hear you clearly.
Yes,
But
yes, sir.
there's a problem with my webcam, as I told you earlier on. So at least to be able to hear my voice.
Yes, sir.
So let's get started. Let me share the screen. Tafazwa, kindly enable me to share the screen.
Oh, okay, sure, sir.
Okay, but can't reach this side.
Can you share it now?
Okay, let's see. Okay, now I'm sharing the screen. It's just opening.
So you can see.
Okay, are you able to see it?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can see the screen.
So, and you can hear my voice and I can start.
Yes, I can
Yes,
start.
yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, you can start.
Okay, we've been looking at the endocrine system. And those earlier on, I gave you just introduction. So now we'll be looking at hormone by hormone. It's important to know hormones by hormones, just to know their physiology. Because these hormones are also used as synthetic drugs to treat various endocrine disorders. So last time I posted that, something was on insulin, the physiology of insulin. So today we'll look at the physiology of the growth hormone. It's clear. Is everyone there?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
no
sir.
issues, I continue.
Yes,
Not
you can
opening.
Pardon?
The slides, are they not opening?
They are opening. So this is the outline. You've seen the outline.
Oh, yes, sir. We've seen the outline.
Yeah, so under
Some of us we can see the outline.
We can't see anything, sir. There's this page where it's showing all your courses, sir, all your notes, not the actual slides.
not the
Yes.
actual slides.
Yes, sir.
No.
Yeah, this one we can see.
Even now, nothing.
Nothing.
Now it has even gone.
Okay, maybe this one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now we
Yes, now I can see.
Okay, now see.
Oh, you can now
this one
see.
is
Yes.
clear.
I was saying the best way to study endocrine physiology, after we've done the basics, like general principles of hormones, there are various mechanisms of actions. You can now look at hormones one by one. Just important hormones. Because these same hormones, they are used as synthetic drugs. Okay, they are able to be synthesized in treatment of endocrine disorders. So I was saying, this would be the outline. Even with other hormones, which we are going to discuss, we'll be able to, should be giving the introduction to that particular hormone. In this case, it's growth hormone. And then just a bit about the chemistry of the same growth hormone and regulation of the same growth hormone and the action of the growth hormone. And then lastly, the pathophysiology of growth hormone. This is just basically definitions of certain diseases so that you can connect easily with pathology. It's clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So each and every hormone, this would be our approach. Just talk about the introduction to the same hormone, the chemistry, that is just looking at the structures, what is it made up of? And then regulation of the same growth hormone. Not all the time this hormone is secreted, so it's being regulated. There are times it stops being secreted. There are times it starts being secreted. That's called regulation. And then the action. Action is just function. What does it do in the body? Okay, in a normal healthy person. Since physiology, we are just talking about a normal healthy person. So what does it do in the body? And then the pathophysiology, that let's say if anything goes wrong with a hormone, what really happens to the body? So under pathology, under pathophysiology, there can either be excessive secretion of the hormone or under secretion of the hormone. Those things can happen. Excessive secretion or under secretion. So this applies to all the hormones. You're able to see this now?
Yes.
Yes.
you can see.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, introduction. So it is secreted throughout life, the same hormone, growth hormone. But it's more in the children because we know they are growing. So they need this hormone. Okay, there's protein synthesis going on. There is bone elongation going on. So it's more in childhood up to teenage life. But as it goes into adulthood, the levels of growth hormone starts to reduce. So this is a single most important hormone needed for normal growth to adult stature. Okay, so in a normal healthy person, growth hormone is dead. It has affects the metabolism of proteins, it affects metabolism of carbohydrates and the lipids, this hormone. Okay, so this hormone is secreted by the anterior pituitary gland. To be specific, it's not enough just to say the anterior pituitary gland. We have to say the specific cells that secretes the growth hormone. It's the somatotropes. Okay, that's why growth hormone is also called somatotropic hormone, because it's secreted by the cells of the anterior pituitary gland, which are called somatotropes. Okay, this diagram just shows the anterior pituitary gland. Are you able to see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's anterior pituitary gland. Who's participating here? There is Tafazwa there, there's Gerald, Niemba, okay. About 36
Sir?
participants. Hello?
Can you maybe talk closer to your mic? You're a little
Closer to
bit
my mic?
distant. The sound is a little bit faint.
Okay. What about like this? Is it better?
Yes, I think so.
It's better.
Okay. So you'll be able to see better diagrams like in your anatomy books, but we have the anterior pituitary gland here. Okay. And we have on top of the pituitary gland, we have the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus, it releases a hormone called growth hormone releasing hormone. It's the one that has influence on the anterior pituitary gland. Okay. But it's not only the anterior pituitary gland that you can see here. There is also the posterior pituitary gland. So there are two lobes that you can see when you are examining the same gland, the posterior and the anterior. So now as we are focusing on the anterior pituitary gland, because the posterior pituitary gland, there are just two hormones secreted there. That is oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. So our focus is just on the growth hormone released by the anterior pituitary gland. Okay, this is just a diagram. You can look at it at your own time. You are able to see this part too?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir.
Okay, the chemistry of growth hormones, just to understand chemistry of growth hormone, because we said these can also be used as synthetic drugs. Okay, so growth hormone is also known as a somatotropin. It's a protein. So what's the smallest unit of the protein? We have amino acid. So it's made up of about 190 amino acids. Some books, they say 191. Okay. Some books, they say 190 amino acids that are synthesized and secreted by the cells called the somatotrophs. So synthesis of growth hormones, just the same mechanism we talked about. Synthesis of proteins, the same mechanism of synthesis of proteins. Okay, so this is our growth hormone in two-dimension structure. As if that's not enough, there's also this important thing that we need to know, that growth hormone has two internal disulfide bridges. It is the synthesis of growth hormone is stimulated by the growth hormone releasing hormone. This growth hormone releasing hormone is produced by the hypothalamus. Okay, so this hormone, the growth hormone releasing hormone, can also be stimulated by stimulants such as stress, okay, or hypoglycemia, where there's low levels of glucose in the blood. And also certain amino acid can stimulate the secretion of growth hormone releasing hormone, which can have influence on the secretion of growth hormone. Okay, so growth hormone is similar to prolactin and human placental lactogen. These are the two common hormones. These are the two hormones which are similar to growth hormone: prolactin and human placental lactogen. If you remember, prolactin is just, it stimulates milk production and secretion from the breasts. And if you remember human placental lactogen, this one, it has growth hormone-like activities, but it's associated during a fetal development or during pregnancy, the human placental lactogen. So it is secreted by the placenta. Okay, so these are the two hormones which are very, very similar to growth hormone: prolactin and human placental lactogen. When we say similar, you find that like prolactin, it's made up of 198 amino acids. Okay. And human placental lactogen is made up of about 191 amino acids sequences. And growth hormone, we said they're about 190. So there's the similarities, even in terms of action. Okay. So this is just a few about chemistry. Some of these are more of biochemistry. These have summarized them in this diagram: growth hormone structure. Okay. Now, regulation of growth hormone. You can see this.
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions so far so good? Any questions?
We can continue, sir.
Okay. Regulation of growth hormones. So all hormones are regulated, not only hormones, many physiological processes. That's what we call homeostasis. So in other words, we are talking about homeostasis of growth hormone. What factors maintains the normal levels of growth hormone in the body? That's what we mean by regulation. Okay, so regulation can fall into two. It's either negative feedback or positive feedback mechanism. Those, I think you remember those: negative feedback and positive feedback. Okay, so we are interested in what factors stimulates or inhibit growth hormone secretion. What factors will stimulate or inhibit growth hormone secretion? So on my left here, we have stimulating factors. On the right here, we have inhibitory factors. So the most important stimulating factor, which I mentioned earlier on, is the growth hormone releasing hormone, which is produced by the hypothalamus. Okay, the brain itself. We won't discuss physiology of the hypothalamus, another topic on its own. But the hypothalamus is able to sense that the growth hormone levels have become low, so it will trigger the release of growth hormone releasing hormone. Okay, but at the same time, the hypothalamus, it's able to release this hormone. This is called the growth hormone inhibitory hormone, which is also called somatostatin. So regulation is at the level of the hypothalamus. at the level of the brain, if you want to call it that way. So
Okay,
this one, pardon?
I have a question.
Okay, yes.
On the previous slide, I thought I saw something like this GH, which is also called somatostatin.
Oh, it's different. This is somatostatin.
That one was it?
That one was somatotropin.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
The other name for growth hormone is somatotropin, but this one
Alright,
is somatostatin.
All right.
Yeah, this somatostatin is also secreted by certain cells in the digestive system. Somatostatin, wherever you read about it, it's always inhibiting secretion of hormones. It's always inhibiting secretion of hormones, somatostatin. Okay, so stimulating factor is growth hormone releasing hormone. And inhibitory factors is growth hormone inhibitory hormone, which is called somatostatin. Now we have others like ghrelin. Ghrelin is produced mainly from the stomach and minute quantities from the hypothalamus. So this ghrelin is released whenever you are hungry. When somebody hasn't eaten for some time, there's a hunger hormone called ghrelin. It is released. It also stimulates the hypothalamus to produce growth hormone releasing hormone. But there's an opposite to ghrelin. It's called leptin. I haven't shown it here. Leptin is when you have eaten, you are satisfied. There's a hormone release called leptin. It's a hormone of, we can call satiety or satiety, if you can call it that way. Okay, we have other factors: hypoglycemia, fasting, exercise, glucagon, stress, certain amino acids. They can also stimulate growth hormone releasing. But inhibitory factors, we have like rapid eye movement, sleep. When you are asleep, growth hormone is inhibited. Glucose itself, hyperglycemia, eating too much glucose or sugary food stuff, they inhibit the secretion of growth hormone. Cortisol is a stress hormone. It also inhibits secretion of growth hormone. This is FFA, it's free fatty acids. Growth hormone itself by negative feedback mechanism. And IGF-1, this is insulin-like growth factors. They also inhibit growth hormone secretion. And then there's this medroxyprogesterone. Medroxyprogesterone also inhibits. This one is a drug used to treat conditions such as absent menstrual periods or irregular menstrual periods or bleeding from the uterus. This drug, medroxyprogesterone, it's used to treat absence of menstrual period or irregular menstrual periods or bleeding from the uterus. So this also has inhibitory factors. I say it's part of the inhibitory factor. So in short, factors that inhibit, that stimulate, it can either be stress or certain amino acid or just decrease in energy levels. Okay, let's remember those factors that stimulate secretion of growth hormone. Energy levels dropping down like hypoglycemia. Stress can either be like exercise. You remember when you're doing exercise, you're putting your body under stress. Growth hormone is released. And even certain amino acids like arginine. Okay, arginine can stimulate growth hormone secretion. Lysine can stimulate growth hormone secretion. Estrogens, which are also proteins in nature, can stimulate growth hormone secretion. Okay, anything else? Any questions? Anyone who's behind? There and away. Hello?
Wasa. Let's proceed,
Okay.
Wasa.
Okay. So that's about factors that stimulate secretion of growth hormone. Now, this can be summarized in this diagram. So when you are asked, describe how growth hormone is regulated, you just have to indicate where the hypothalamus is. You indicate the anterior pituitary gland, the one that is secreting growth hormone, and then the target tissue. So you start. Physiologically, the most important stimulant of growth hormone is the growth hormone releasing hormone. Okay. It will, from the hypothalamus, it will move through the blood, through the portal system, and it will reach the anterior pituitary gland, specifically the somatotropes. Okay, on the somatotropes, there are receptors for growth hormone releasing hormone. The receptors are located there. So it will bind to the receptors on the anterior pituitary gland, and then growth hormone will be released. And growth hormone is going to perform its various actions, like it has anti-insulin properties. Okay, it prevents absorption of glucose. So growth hormone leads to increase in blood glucose. Apart from having anti-insulin properties, it has indirect effects on growth. Okay, elongation of bones, and also protein synthesis. So now these target tissues, they will release certain substances called somatomedins, which is released by the liver. So the target tissues can either be adipose tissue, skeletal muscle, and the liver. Okay, so the liver will release somatomedins, which will have a negative effect on the anterior pituitary gland. So growth hormone will stop being secreted. Apart from that, the same somatomedins can also have a stimulating effect on the hypothalamus, so that the hypothalamus can release an inhibitory hormone called somatostatin, which will inhibit the secretion of growth hormone. Okay, so this diagram just summarizes everything. And then the same growth hormone releasing hormone can have a negative effect on the hypothalamus. To prevent the release of more growth hormone releasing hormone. Okay, so this diagram was, you can find it in Linda Constanzo. It's very well explained. So this is how growth hormone is regulated. The hypothalamus, let me just quickly run through it. The hypothalamus will release the growth hormone releasing hormone. This hypothalamus can be stimulated by stress, okay, psychological factors, and many other amino acids, okay. So the hypothalamus will release a hormone called growth hormone releasing hormone. It will diffuse, it will reach the anterior pituitary gland, specifically to bind to the somatotropes, those that secretes growth hormone. Remember, in the anterior pituitary glands, there are various hormones that secretes, there are various cells that secretes hormones. Okay, so once it binds to that cell, once it binds to the receptor, it will follow those mechanisms we are talking about. Those transduction mechanisms. I think I have a diagram to explain that. So it will bind to those receptors to trigger the secretion of growth hormone by exocytosis. So growth hormone will have various actions in the body. It will cause elongation of bones. It will increase protein synthesis. It will increase the levels of sugars in the body. But there are also some factors like the somatomedins, which are called insulin-like growth factors. Okay, these can also stimulate the hypothalamus to release a somatostatin, which is inhibitory. But the same somatomedins can act on the anterior pituitary gland. There will be no further secretion of growth hormone. Okay. So this is a mechanism of growth hormone secretion from the somatotropes. So what we've just mentioned, what's the mechanism at cellular level? What really happens? At cellular level, what really happens? This is the same level for certain drugs, the same mechanism for synthetic drugs. So it's straightforward. Can we go on?
You can proceed.
Okay. So what's the mechanism by which growth hormone, in other words, how is growth hormone secreted? What happens inside the somatotropes for us to see exocytosis? It's the same principle we talked earlier on, the introductory parts. Growth hormone releasing hormone will bind to the growth hormone releasing hormone receptor. Okay, so this growth hormone releasing hormone is coupled to a G protein. Now we know that the G protein has 3 subunits: the alpha subunit, the beta subunit, and the gamma subunit. So I've been shown the beta subunit and the gamma subunit. I've just shown the alpha subunit. So the alpha subunit, it's like it comes out from the receptor, and then it activates this enzyme, the adenylyl cyclase. Okay, this enzyme is actually located just on the cell membrane. Okay, the purpose of this enzyme is to convert adenosine diphosphate, or if you want, you can say ATP, into cyclic adenosine monophosphate. Okay, it converts ATP into cyclic adenosine monophosphate. Now this one is like it's like a second messenger. Okay, it's like it has amplified the signaling strength of this growth hormone releasing hormone. So that's why we need to form a second messenger. It's just to amplify the signal. Okay, to amplify is just to increase the strength of something. If you remember cyclic AMP, it's adenosine monophosphate. There's adenine monophosphate, meaning it's a what? Nucleoside, nucleotide. It's a nucleotide, yes. There's adenine there, there's monophosphate, it's a nucleotide. Now it's cyclic. So now this is the second messenger. It has various actions. One of the actions is it stimulates the calcium, the voltage sensitive calcium channels. There's a question? Okay, it acts on the voltage sensitive calcium so that calcium starts entering the cell. And when calcium enters the cell, calcium will participate or will react with the growth hormone containing vesicles, the vesicles that contains the growth hormone, and it will trigger exocytosis. If you remember, exocytosis is just a transport mechanism where substances, especially proteins, they are removed out of the cell, they exit out of the cell. The opposite is endocytosis. So cyclic AMP ensures that calcium enters the cell so that it triggers exocytosis. Apart from that, calcium will activate the protein kinases A. Okay, there are various enzymes which are called protein kinases. These protein kinases, they will activate these If you check in your notes, this is cyclic responsive element binding proteins. Okay, don't worry about this. You can just call it CREB, cyclic AMP responsive element binding protein. Okay, so what CREB does, it just stimulates the synthesis of growth hormone. It also stimulates the synthesis of growth hormone releasing hormone receptor. So this is the mechanism by which growth hormone secretion from the somatotropes. Okay. So that's what we mean when we say, how is growth hormone secreted? By what mechanism? It's via the adenylyl cyclase mechanism. But how is it inhibited? Also, these are notes, you can look at them at your own time. Now, how is it inhibited? Inhibition, we said, it's because of the somatotropin releasing inhibitory factor, the SRIF, somatostatin releasing inhibitory factor. So what this SRIF does, it just inhibits growth hormone from binding to this receptor. Okay, instead of activating the alpha subunit of the G protein, there will be no activation. Okay, therefore there will be no conversion of ATP to cyclic AMP. So that's what it does. It inhibits the conversion of or the activation of adenylyl cyclase. So here, let's not waste time. That's a mechanism. It just inhibits the activation of adenylyl cyclase. So if you have a patient with high levels of growth hormone, like in conditions such as gigantism, acromegaly, okay, where there is the abnormal growth, the best is to administer a drug that will inhibit the activation of adenylyl cyclase. Okay, we'll learn much of that in pharmacology. So that would be the best drug of choice. Okay, these are just also the notes showing the mechanism by which somatostatin inhibits somatotropes. Action of growth hormone. Any questions? We are almost there. There are just few things remaining.
I have a question, Doc.
Yes.
Does it mean like now that the somatotropes, like the growth hormone, preformed already?
That again?
Before the secretion? In the somatotropes.
Yes.
Does it mean that the growth hormone is preformed and just secreted?
Oh yes. It is actually stored in vesicles, waiting for an appropriate stimulant. Most of these peptide hormones, they are stored. They are synthesized and they are stored in vesicles, waiting for a stimulation. So even this growth hormone is synthesized by the somatotropes and they are stored in vesicles until there's an appropriate stimulant. Any question?
Yes, sir. Just a follow-up question on the same one that she asked. Does it mean when we do even the synthesis of the growth hormone, or we are just going to do this?
No, synthesis of growth hormone, it follows the same pathway of synthesis of proteins. If you remember synthesis of proteins, transcription, translation mechanisms. I don't know if you remember those.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Synthesis of proteins, yeah, just general pathway.
All right.
Where information from a DNA, it's picked or is transcribed onto the messenger RNA. And the messenger RNA moves into the cytoplasm. It goes to the ribosomes. Those synthesis pathways to the ribosomes, And then at the ribosome, that's when there's protein synthesis. Appropriate amino acids starts coming in until they form the growth hormone.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Yes, yes. I can proceed?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Action of growth hormone. What does it do in the body? Although I mentioned, but it can be grouped into two actions. There is indirect effect of growth hormone, and there's also direct effect. Under indirect effect, this is very important. Under indirect effect, first of all, growth hormone has to interact with the cells in the liver. And then the growth hormone will be converted to another chemical called somatomedins. That's why we are calling it indirect effect. So growth hormone binds to some liver cells, and then the liver cells will convert the growth hormone into somatomedins. The other name for somatomedins is insulin-like growth factor, IGF-1. Not IGF-2, but IGF-1. There is also IGF-2 in the fetus. During fetal development, there is a growth hormone-like hormone, but it's called IGF-2. But in after birth, there's after birth we are dealing with IGF-1. Okay, so that's what we mean by indirect effect. There is production of IGFs or somatomedins. So indirect growth promoting is due to the action of growth hormone on the liver. When the hormone acts on the liver secretes somatomedin C or insulin-like growth factor. This substance acts on the skeletal and extraskeletal compartments. Skeletal and anything that's not skeletal. That's what we mean by extraskeletal compartments. On the skeletal compartments, what does it do? It promotes growth of the skeleton. So here we will not waste much on the growth of skeleton. This is very clear in histology. Okay, but it stimulates the growth of skeleton by stimulating processes such as chondrogenesis. Okay, so when the somatomedins acts on the epiphyseal plate present between the long bones, the epiphyseal plate gets widened. This gives space for the chondrogenesis of the long bones. So the long bones grow linearly. Okay, so growth hormone stimulates chondrogenesis. On the extra compartment, growth is brought about by hyperplasia, stimulating mitotic cell division and hence increasing the number of cells. Also, growth hormone causes hypertrophy, increasing cell size. So the various parts of the body do not grow in equal proportion at the same time. Okay, so these are extraskeletal compartments, the action of growth hormone. So this graph shows that various parts of the body do not grow at different rates. Okay, so we have down here the genitals. Around 2 years, 4 years. Around 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, the genitals are in the same size. By the time they reach 14, 13, due to growth hormone, they start increasing in size and functionality. And then general body, it grows 2 years, 4 years. This is due to the action of growth hormone. Okay. Until it reaches 18 there, it makes a graph which is straight. And then the lymphoid tissue, also this shows the pattern of how it grows. And then the neural tissue, which is the nervous system, shows the pattern. Okay, so there's nothing much here. We are just trying to depict how to depict the fact that growth hormone does not cause same growth in all the cells. They grow at different rates. Now, the other important effect of growth hormone is called the direct effect. This one, there's no somatomedins, there's what we call anti-insulin action. Okay, this can be brought about in the target organs in presence of cortisol. So for this one, it needs the action of cortisol. This is what we call synergism. Synergy. So growth hormone acts synergetically with the cortisol. Okay. But remember, growth hormone has anti-insulin action. So everything you can explain about growth hormone if it has anti-insulin action, and we know the actions of insulin. So you can easily explain the anti-insulin action. And was it yesterday, the day before yesterday, there was a video I posted on insulin action. So all the actions of insulin are stopped or are inhibited by growth hormone. We know that insulin causes hyperglycemia. I mean hypoglycemia. So growth hormone will cause hyperglycemia. We know that insulin causes lipogenesis, storage of fats. So growth hormone will break down the fats. So it's a very good hormone. It breaks down fats. Okay. On fat metabolism, it acts on the adipose tissue. Neutral fats and triglycerides are broken down to release the free fatty acids. Okay, so these are just anti-insulin actions. So these are the actions of growth hormone. Indirect effects causing growth, and the direct effect, which is anti-insulin. So these are summarized in form of a diagram. Any questions? Any questions, or I proceed?
So I wanted to ask, so growth hormone works together with, does it ever work on its
Come
own?
again?
I'm saying growth hormone, does it
Yes.
ever work on its own, or does it always work with other hormones, in conjunction with other hormones, to perform a specific or to execute a specific function?
Okay, good question.
Like
The question is, does it work on its own, or
with
it
other
works
hormones
with other hormones?
to perform specific functions?
Okay, like physiologically, growth hormone, like for example, the direct actions, it needs the permissive action of cortisol. Permissive, it's called the permissive action of cortisol. If you remember factors, if you look at cortisol, which we'll look at it later on, factors usually that stimulates cortisol secretions are related to factors that stimulate growth hormone. So for direct effects, it needs permissive action of cortisol. For indirect effect, here it can work on its own. It acts on the liver cells, okay, and forms somatomedins. Okay, so in short, the direct effects requires permissive action of cortisol, but the indirect effects on the liver, it can work on its own.
Okay.
Yes. So this diagram very good. It's outlining everything. So indirect binds the liver secretes somatomedins. Somatomedins, they have effects on the skeleton, also on extraskeletal. On the skeleton, it increases chondrogenesis, and the bone starts to grow. But too much of it, it's a condition that leads to conditions like gigantism. Too much of growth hormone. Okay. And it's common, not really it's common, it exists. Okay, there's another diagram. It's one and the same thing. You can look at them at your own time, but they summarizes the effect of growth hormones. Okay, so when you are describing the effect of growth hormone, the physiological effect, you need to look at it at the adipose tissue. What does it do to the adipose tissue? About the liver, what happens? And muscles. Okay, and everything will fall in place. So this is just the last part, just to help you get connected to pathology. It's important to know that there are some physiological conditions associated with growth hormone. So there are about, okay, there are many, but the most common, like hyperactivity of the anterior pituitary gland. When there's high levels of activity in the anterior pituitary gland, we have this gigantism, acromegaly, gigantism, and Cushing disease. Okay, so when you just do your pathology, I'm sure you're doing your pathology, yes. As you are doing your pathology, remember that there are these conditions associated with excessive secretion of pituitary hormone, in this case, growth hormone. Okay, so what is gigantism? It's just a pituitary disorder which is characterized by excess growth of the body. So what are the signs? The person looks huge, giants, and they have hyperglycemia, high levels of glucose, and they also have glycosuric. They are glycosuric. There's presence of glucose in the urine. And also signs and symptoms, they have vision disturbances. Okay, they have what we call bitemporal hemianopia. Okay, bitemporal hemianopia, it's partial blindness, where vision is missing in the outer half of both the right and the left visual field. It's called bitemporal hemianopia. It's due to the compression, okay? Due to the compression on the anterior pituitary gland. Okay, so gigantism associated with high levels of growth hormone. Are you able to see this picture?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So this person
Yes,
has gigantism due to oversecretion of growth hormone. Okay. So it happens. It happens. So that's the science behind the gigantism. And most of it, you learn more of it in detail in pathology. And then we have acromegaly. Acromegaly is the disorder characterized by the enlargement, thickening, and broadening of bones, particularly in the extremities of the body. Okay, one of the most important signs is gorilla face. I'm sure you've seen certain individuals that looks like their face like a gorilla. That's due to excessive secretion of growth hormone. But you shouldn't laugh when a patient comes to your hospital. You should attend to such individual. Okay, so there's also enlargement of hands and feet. There are many other symptoms, enlargement of visceral organs, hyperactivity of the thyroid gland, parathyroid, and these are other important glands which we'll discuss, the thyroid gland. There's hyperglycemia, glucosuria, all these are just features. This is another diagram showing acromegaly. Okay, you can see large ears, large protruding jaw, okay, large jaws, large tongue, large nose, frontal bossing. Okay. The signs are predictable just by knowing the normal functions of growth hormone. So you can predict the signs, you can predict the symptoms just by knowing the normal functions of the growth hormone. That's what we need. And then we have other hypoactivity, not hyper, but this is hypoactivities, where there's low levels of growth hormone. We have dwarfism, people that are very short, acromegalia. This is characterized by atrophy, not hypertrophy, but atrophy of the extremities of the body. Okay, where the legs are very small, not well developed. And then we have also Simon's diseases. Okay, so the whole purpose here is just to show you that these pathological conditions exist, which your pathology lecturer will explain more on this. But this diagram shows that dwarfism. Are we able to see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So this is where we end. That was just about growth hormone. So the most important thing, let's know the function, the normal function of this hormone, and what factors stimulate the secretion of this hormone, and what factors inhibit the secretion of this hormone.
We're in the house.
Okay, so this is where we end. Any question or any questions?
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Sir, are you going to send these notes, or we're just going to use the same ones you gave us the first time?
No, these notes I can send. I'll send them.
And the ones on your introduction, like the way you guide us on how we should go about the introduction and the pancreas one, the one you said you did last time.
Oh, I send the notes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, no problem. I'll send the PowerPoint notes of all the endocrine glands.
All right.
Thank you.
Don't feel
Thank
bored.
you.
There are too many. There's too much information, but it's just important to know this information. So there are about 8 slides. So I'll send.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yes. Tafazwa, you can take over. I'm done.
Okay, sure, sir. Thank you for the lecture.
Okay.